Hey, what's going on, fuckers? How are you guys? HR Falcons 22 back here again, doing not another dip review because I pretty much reviewed like every dip out there. This is just me. I just got done working out at the gym. I went to the chiropractor, got an adjustment. Oh, speaking, I really love like having my neck cracked and shit like that. So like neck stretches that you can do if you're like in class or something like your neck gets stiff like mine. Take your right hand, put it above your left ear. Like, it looks different because of the fucking video, but take your right hand, put it above your left ear, pull down to your right shoulder, and do the same thing on the other side. Or the other one that my chiropractor was just telling me about is if you like open your neck up, like put your chin, don't turn your chin past your shoulder because that's when it starts to get like unsafe, but turn your chin to your shoulder like this, like really open up the side of your neck and put your hand, like your thumb, on that, like those muscles right back there, and then just kind of move your head back that way, and then do the same on the other side. And I swear, oh, it feels so good. It's the best thing ever. I do it at work all the time. Anyways, yeah, I went to the chiropractor, and then I went to the gym, and then I got back, and I was just like, you know what? I'm going to make a dip video because the last time I made a dip video, I correctly predicted that Cam Newton was going to be a little bitch boy, whiny fucker, and they were going to lose the Super Bowl. The Panthers were, and the Broncos were going to win, and Peyton Manning was going to ride off into the sunset, and everything was going to be fucking great, which it is. I was so happy. I've never been so happy to see somebody so physically and emotionally crippled as Cam Newton was in his press conference when he was being a little fucking bitch about, oh yeah, well they just played better than us. And yeah, okay, I get it. He just lost the Super Bowl. Like, yeah, I'd probably be pissed off too. And it came out that Peyton Manning probably more than likely gave the trainer at Tennessee when he was playing quarterback, probably gave her the fruit bowl, which, if you don't know, is when you kind of stuff everything between your legs and then just kind of, bend over like that. And so apparently that happened, and which, okay, yeah, I understand, like, that's a shitty thing for Peyton Manning to have done, but he was also like a college age kid, and this was like the only female in the room, and it's like, if you're a female trainer and you work at a college, like, you might get balls put on your face. Yeah, I don't know, but it's like, what did you think was going to happen? Like, why were you so surprised about that? So anyways, I'm super happy that the Broncos won the Super Bowl. Super happy for Von Miller, but Malik Jackson, Derek Wolfe, like all those dudes. Von Miller himself was like, yeah, if I could split this award into, three pieces, I would share it with all of them. So good on the Broncos. Makes me proud to be from Denver. So in this video, I wanted to talk to you guys. Well, first let's take a dip, actually, and then let's chug some milk, because I have been on this whole new diet. Basically, like, it's not like a diet. It's not the only thing I eat, but post-workout, I really stopped taking whey protein just because I had kidney stones at one point, like 2-3 years ago, and it was the shittiest thing ever. And my doctor told me, like, oh yeah, it's probably because you're, drinking too much whey protein. So I was like, oh, well, what can I drink instead? And she told me that milk is actually fantastic for you post-workout, because it's something like 80% whey and 20% casein. It's the optimal blend of the two different types of protein. So there's this diet out there called the GOMAD diet, which stands for gallon of milk a day. I've been drinking a gallon of milk a day, and my farts have been nasty. But yeah, and I put on probably 10 to 15 pounds in like, a month and a half or something, which is big for me because I've been this height, probably like 5'10", 5'11", and 150 to 155 pounds from probably my sophomore year of high school on. Then I started lifting in college because everybody ignored me in high school, and then I was just all of a sudden I was ripped, but I wasn't getting any bigger, and so I actually wanted to try and get bigger. So cheers, bottom. If anybody is a Always Sunny in Philadelphia fan, every time I go to drink milk like this, I just feel like a McPoyle. If you don't watch Always Sunny in Philadelphia, definitely check it out. It's like the funniest show I've ever seen. It's just always been my standby go-to favorite TV show. Like, Family Guy can be funny, and then it kind of gets old. South Park, like, I'll always watch South Park. It's, right up there in the same playing field. But Always Sunny is hilarious, so check it out. Anyways, this video, let me go grab my fucking spitter. I'll be right back. Bee-ba-ba-boo. Alright, so in this video, I wanted to talk to you guys mainly about the presidential elections, because if you're like me, then half the time I'm kind of dance between, am I going to vote or am I not going to vote, right? Because on one hand, I do want to vote because I want to take part in the democratic process. If I don't vote, then I'm inherently not helping this country along, right? I'm not voicing any sort of opinion, and therefore I have no credence to bitch about anything when, you know, someone in office inevitably fucks up. But at the same time, voting for me was never that attractive because it was always under the presumption that if I vote, that my vote counts just as much as, say, a corporation's, which it doesn't, by the way. If somebody's trying to rock the vote, man, go out there and, like, vote and put the little sticker on your fucking shirt, it's like, dude, I'm not going to sit here and participate in this little circle jerk and pretend like, you know, my vote is really that important, because it honestly isn't. Not so much so in this election, just because Trump and Bernie are both so anti-establishment and they're not really funded by super PACs or, you know, really any sort of private interest. I mean, I'm sure they're funded by private interest, but you get the drift. It's this election is a hell of a lot different than Obama's campaign, and it's definitely going to be a presidential election that makes America go one way or the other. So I really wanted to talk to you guys about that, kind of voice my opinions on some of the candidates, and, you know, just tell you the dumb rambling shit that I think, you know, me, Captain America, you know, HR Falcons 22. So then I wanted to talk to you guys about a really great article that I read on Facebook the other day. It's like the only Facebook article I think I've ever shared addressing the problem of veterans in the United States and how really the United States could give two shits about their veterans, or our government has a proven track record of not supporting the troops, and yet we claim to do, you know, all this stuff with support the troops and Wounded Warrior Project, and you know, we bring out a returning combat veteran or something to meet it, you know, surprise his family at a football game. I'm here to tell you that it's not horseshit. The gesture itself is nice, but it's not addressing the root cause of this really big problem that's facing America with our veterans. And then lastly, I wanted to talk to you guys about networking, you know, because this is the guy you should listen to when it comes to professionalism and how to get a job. But granted, I do work for a pretty prestigious company, so I'd like to think that I have some basic proficiency in networking, interviewing, you know, what to put on your resume, all that sort of stuff that I wish people would have told me, you know, sooner. Before my junior year of college at USC, I had absolutely no idea what I was doing. So stick around for that. We'll start with the presidential elections, pros and cons of each candidate. And these are all literally just stream of consciousness things that I can come up with, right? So Hillary Clinton, arguably the Democratic frontrunner, right? So pros of Hillary: fantastic foreign policy experience. You can say what you will about Benghazi. I personally think that Benghazi was an inevitability. It doesn't matter if you had goddamn Teddy Roosevelt as the Secretary of State at the time. There was no way that Benghazi wasn't going to happen. And it just so happened to occur under Hillary's auspice, like on her watch. So I don't necessarily fault her for Benghazi, because you know, when you think about, okay, well, it's all Hillary's fault because of Benghazi. Well, you know, Hillary also has people that work for her that are feeding her intelligence, and you have to trust that she, in her position, is going to make the best decision, what she thinks is right. She's not going to have the power to sit there and be like, everybody else is saying we should get him the fuck out of there. Oh, well, I think we should let him stay. Like, I don't think Hillary went into Benghazi or, you know, any sort of meeting surrounding it, leading up to it, you know, the assassination really of Ambassador Stevens, but I don't think she went into it like, yeah, I'm going to fucking keep him there, and, you know, we're going to kill all the American representatives abroad. So I don't really fault her for that. I also think she has a lot of fantastic experience as the former First Lady of the United States. I mean, she's been in the White House before. And if she wins, then it'll be the first time, as far as we know, that two presidents would have banged one another. So I'm not saying I would vote for Hillary. I'm just trying to give you, like pros and cons. The cons with Hillary are that she just comes off as so inauthentic. She comes off as very ingenuous. She's a very polished politician, but that doesn't necessarily mean that she has my best interests in mind when she's, fucking around in the White House. She's also a little too chummy with Wall Street. God, my opinions on Wall Street, that's just a whole other, can of worms that I don't really want to open right now. Mainly because I don't have my numbers to back me up, so I don't want to just like blah blah, just spout a bunch of shit and then have you guys believe it and be like, well, actually, that's just yeah. So that's Hillary for you. Bernie, I actually really really like Bernie Sanders. Granted, pretty much every respected economic research outlet and a lot of major economists have come out and said, yeah, your plan is basically unsustainable on every level. I think that Bernie has very noble ideas in terms of making America more like Europe. And a lot of people, I feel like, associate Bernie with socialism, right? Socialism gets this negative connotation in America that it seems like socialism is somehow associated with communism or something negative. It's not the American way. Like, what are you, a socialist or something? Like, it's always used as sort of a pejorative, when in reality all socialism is just giving people a safety net. Because if you think about it, let's say tomorrow that I get lip cancer, right? And for whatever reason, it's like a very aggressive form, and I have to go in for radiation treatments, and because of that, I can't work. I can't fulfill my obligations as a working, contributing member of society. And on top of it, I have to pay for radiation treatments and, cancer treatments, all that kind of stuff. Dude, I'm fucked. I'm absolutely fucked. Like, I could have my parents, help me out or whatever, but at a certain point, you start to feel like a burden to other people, and you're like, I think I'll probably just, go and fucking die instead. That is not something that should happen. You shouldn't have to worry about what happens if I get sick, what happens if I lose my job, what happens if, all these other things. And all socialism is giving people a safety net. So let's take that same scenario, me getting, lip cancer or something like that. If the same thing were to happen to me in Europe, and I were to, be diagnosed with some disease or something like that, and I wasn't able to work, then the government would pay me while I was, not working. I would be able to make up to 75% of my original wage. Sometimes it's 75%. I think in other countries it might be lower, it might be higher. But I would be able to still have some form of income while I'm getting radiation treatments. I wouldn't just be, left to fucking die in the streets. Also, the costs of medical care in Europe are substantially lower, and really, when you wait it out, it's like, oh well, you pay for what you get. Well, the doctors in Europe are just as good as they are in America, and in all reality, you're not waiting that long in a socialist medical society. Perfect example. We had this girl while I was studying abroad in the Netherlands. We had this girl from Australia who was riding home hammered from the club one night, and she just ate shit and busted all of her teeth on the curb, or on the concrete or something. And which sucked because she was so hot, but all of her teeth were fucked up. She calls a dentist or a maxillofacial surgeon in Rotterdam, and they were like, yeah, we can get you in at 11. And she's like, 11 a.m. Today? And they're like, yeah, come on in. So she goes in, literally gets a brand new set of teeth, ends up paying, probably 160 euros out of pocket. Dude, 160 euros is half of what it would cost to replace one tooth in America. So for a while, I was just sitting there thinking damn, I should like go out and bust my teeth too, so that I can just get, a new set and pay practically nothing for it. I see a lot of advantages with a social medical system, not only in the sense that, yeah, you're keeping people healthier and therefore life expectancy is longer. And if people are healthier and they stay alive longer, then they can pay taxes for longer and fund the same system. But it's also just like a basic human right thing, right? Like, you shouldn't just fucking leave people to die whenever they get sick or dismiss them because they're not able to afford care under a medical system that is very substantially subsidized and that is already making just price gouging the fuck out of people who are paying into the system. So, why not take that money and allow other people, I don't know, basic access to medical care? So that's just my opinion on that. But that's why, I do like at least some of the portions of Bernie's policy. The other portion of Bernie's policy that I really agree with is eliminating certain tax loopholes. So, for example, if I were to start my own company, right, I would form an LLC, and I would incorporate that LLC in some sort of offshore tax haven, like the Cayman Islands. I could get a Swiss bank account, Isle of Man, Malta, someplace like that, right? Any profits that I were to earn under this LLC, I can defer as income and funnel it to a bank account, an LLC, a company bank account in the Cayman Islands or Switzerland or whatever. And once it's in that account, or once it's been, written off into those books in that account, I don't have to pay American taxes on it. I can just skate away free. Same thing goes with if you start a foundation. The foundation, certain foundations, like, okay, the Foundation for Cancer Research, that's great. But if you're trying to hide your money in offshore tax havens, which isn't illegal, it's just, kind of shady to go, the long way around, the really roundabout way, and try to eliminate try to reduce the amount that you are paying taxes on. Bernie's policy does away with that. American corporations who make money or who are located abroad would, under Bernie's policy, be forced to pay American taxes on those revenues that they earn abroad. There is kind of the other side of it, though, where you think of it's this boring financial policy called FATCA, which basically says that if you're an American, say I renounced my American citizenship and I started living, I don't know, I went back to Rotterdam and started living there, I would still have to pay American taxes while I was living in the Netherlands, which doesn't make a lot of sense, right? That seems really unfair. What, I'm going to pay American taxes for building those American roads that I'm not using as a, de facto citizen of the Netherlands? That's just kind of a bunch of bullshit, but, you got to pick your battles. So I think that the consequences of capitalism have wreaked havoc on the American economic system, and we saw that in 2007, 2008, reckless lending policies, letting people borrow who shouldn't have been borrowing, and then all of a sudden people come to find out that what they think is personal wealth isn't actually personal wealth at all, and then there's a bank run and everybody freaks the fuck out, and then the banks skate away scotch-free, and American corporations skate away scotch-free. I think that's bullshit. So I really like Bernie's ideas. I just don't think that they're economically viable. But at the same time, that's why we have checks and balances, right? It's not like Bernie's going to get to the White House and all of a sudden, all right, fuck it, we're doing things my way. So I think that if Bernie had the right advisors, then yeah, he would be a great president. And plus he's Jewish and, they're pretty good with money, and he would be the first Jewish person to ever be in the White House. So I think it could be pretty interesting. Marco Rubio, even though I think he is the ideal mix between Republican and Democrat, he is kind of like that happy medium. The only thing that concerns me about Rubio is his record of absenteeism. He doesn't vote on shit in the Senate. He's always like, well, I voted against this, I voted against that, and I voted against the war in Iraq. It's like, no, dude, you didn't vote. That's the thing. You didn't have a yes or no answer. He just seems too on the fence for me. But I do think that, having the Hispanic background and having his experience as senator, Is he a senator, representative? I don't fucking remember. I don't think he would be a bad choice at all. Frankly, I don't understand why he isn't in a higher position than Trump or Cruz right now. Speaking of, for as much as everybody rips on Donald Trump, like I was just doing, I mean, I can understand why people sort of tend to side with Trump. The thing about Trump is that at least I know what he's thinking, right? At least he's so blunt and he just says what he means. At least I can be reassured that he's not being paid off, in a dark alleyway by some guy somewhere. He just says whatever he wants, and he's kind of like the Bernie for the Republican Party. Very anti-establishment, and I think that, yeah, okay, he might have run some businesses into bankruptcy, but again, that's why we have checks and balances. It's not like Donald Trump is going to get to the White House and all of a sudden shit's going to hit the fan, right? I think that he has a really good group of advisors who thus far have run a brilliant campaign, and if he were to surround himself with those advisors while he was in the White House, then I don't see any reason why Trump couldn't be a good president. The only thing that concerns me is that he could be chasing the White House, not necessarily for, look at me, I'm Donald Trump. He could be chasing it so that he can more aptly influence the media, which, as we know, the president can influence the media, and having the media in the hands of somebody like Trump, who is very much, about commercializing and self-promotion and, all this stuff, I just fear this sort of like indoctrination, sort of brainwashing that starts, but that's like a very paranoid, worst case scenario. I mean, other than that, if I actually gave a shit about politics, I would probably be really on the fence between Bernie and Trump. As far as like other candidates, like Ted Cruz, okay, yeah, I get it. He's a really smart guy. He went to Harvard Law School or whatever. But the thing that concerns me about Ted Cruz is that he thinks he's been like somehow anointed by God to like lead America into this, this new spiritual awakening or something like that. And I understand and I can respect a guy who stands by his values like that, but at the same time, dude, religion does a lot of things to people, and not chiefly among them, limiting your ability to think freely, at least in my opinion. So that's why I would be concerned. The same sort of indoctrination that I was talking about with Trump, I think that would reach kind of this fever pitch in, under a Cruz presidency. That and his face just kind of pisses me off. He just kind of has this like weaselly face. I don't really like it. What's the tweet that I saw? I'll see if I can find it. My sister actually tweeted this shit out earlier, and oh my god, I was dying. I thought it was the funniest shit ever. So, this is just some picture that I found on Twitter. Hopefully you guys can see Cruz and Kevin from The Office, which I think is a hilarious comparison. Yeah, let's see. Other candidates. Ben Carson, great neurosurgeon, probably. He is a great neurosurgeon, but thus far that really seems to be the only redeeming characteristic about him. Like, okay, you're great at being a neurosurgeon, but how are you when it comes to foreign policy? How are you when it comes to economic policy? How are you when it comes to certain domestic issues like racism, Black Lives Matter, like dealing with that sort of stuff? If you're as good at that as you are at being a neurosurgeon, then great, but you don't have any track record. You have no baseline. I can't base my decision to elect you as the leader of the free world solely based on your ability to fix people's brains, if that makes sense. So, those are just kind of the main candidates, like my thoughts on the main candidates. Take them or leave them. Next up, the veteran problem. So, as I was saying earlier, I read this article on Facebook, or not on Facebook, but I shared it on Facebook. I don't really share a lot of things on Facebook or social media in general, for that matter. But this article really struck a chord with me. I'll have to find the author. I'll put the link to it down in the description. But it was basically describing how if you are an American soldier, any branch of the armed forces, right? If you're an American soldier, you're 5 times more likely, based on last year's numbers, you're 5 times more likely to off yourself than you are to die in a foreign war, which means that the most dangerous combatants against, people, the most dangerous forces acting upon American troops are not ISIS, are not, the Taliban, Hamas, anybody like that. It's themselves. Last year we had something like, the numbers were like 55 American armed, soldiers from all branches of the armed forces who, were killed in action, while occupying Iraq or, just in operations abroad. Now, by contrast, we had like 287 combat veterans or like, honorably discharged veterans who offed themselves last year. Dude, that's terrifying. Do you know that at any given moment, like on any given night, there's like upwards of 10,000 veterans who are homeless? Like, how does that make any sense? You come back from a war that is pretty much predicated on the special interests of American politicians. I mean, let's be honest, like, what sort of threat does ISIS pose to America? Dude, if ISIS were to try and come to America and, like, take that shit over, nothing would happen. They would get absolutely shut down in a heartbeat. So it's therefore illogical for us to all of a sudden go over there and be killing these people when they pose a very, very negligible threat to the United States. We also make our soldiers go through, if we're going to go and occupy a foreign country, we make our soldiers go through this brutal reconditioning of their psyche, and they have to suffer through this occupation of a foreign country, maybe be forced to kill people who they don't know and who they don't know are in the right or the wrong, right? And in doing so, say a drone strike, kills some terrorist or something like that, right? That terrorist is somebody's dad or, somebody's brother, somebody's uncle. Like, what are you doing but just creating more terrorists? Because those people over there, like people in the Middle East, they're in areas that we're, sending drone attacks in. They're not like, my dad was a terrorist, so yeah, I guess he pretty much deserved to die. They're just learning to hate whoever it was that dropped the drones. Now, I'm not condoning terrorism, but at a certain point, you have to wonder, like, if we just stopped and if we got the fuck out of there, there's nobody for them to hate. We're not provoking them anymore. I personally think that the more attacks, the more, drone strikes, the more whatever it is in the Middle East, all you're doing is just creating more problems later on. So then these veterans, right? These veterans come back from these foreign wars, and they don't have resources or systems that care for them here in America. Like, we pretty much just leave them on the streets. What up, Seth? We just leave them on the streets. We don't give them access to medical care, as evidenced by the problems that we've seen with, VAs, where people just like die in the waiting rooms. That's very fucked up. And then you think about, okay, these soldiers come back and, they might be suffering from PTSD, any sorts of physical or mental ailment, and we're not giving them access to medical care that they need. And then when they try and self-medicate with pot or alcohol or, any of the above, we arrest them and throw them in jail. Like, how does that make any sense? Number one, because we shouldn't have veterans in the first place, right? There shouldn't be the concept of a veteran, right? Because if we actually thought about like, oh, why are we sending these people over there? They're actually human beings. They're not just disposable like rounds of ammunition or missiles or, fighter jets or anything like that. These are human beings. So then even if we do send them over there, then we should provide care, some sort of way for them to get help for any injuries, mental or physical, that they've sustained. And we don't do that. So that's why I find it really hypocritical when, people pledge blind obedience to the American government by slapping a bumper sticker on their car. Yeah, I fucking support the troops. You support the government that tells you to support the troops, but that government has a proven track record of literally not giving a shit about the troops. So if you actually wanted to support the troops, you would go and find out, okay, well, who's behind these wars? How does American foreign policy actually create more enemies than it had in the first place? That's my thought on it, and that's why, I don't support any further efforts in Syria. I mean, most of the time you've just got those people, the Tafriq, over there, and those are the people, like the tribal people who became part of ISIS, like once ISIS formed up, right? Most of the time they're just off in one another anyways. They're not really, actively trying to kill American occupiers. So, it's not really our problem. We shouldn't fucking be over there. But, that's my thought. All right. Last segment in this shit show of a fucking dip vid. Seb, were you sleeping? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to wake you up with my impassioned ranting.
I was just hungover and I couldn't get to sleep. I was just chilling.
Yeah. How was work?
Sucked.
Long and gay?
Fucking bad.
Yeah. Well, at least you got a good attitude about it, Okay, so last thing. This was like sort of the gist of a presentation that one of my professors in the international business program here at South Carolina that, I graduated from gave us in our introduction to global business, globalization and business. And it wasn't so much about business or the interrelation between, economic policy and a foreign government. Like, it wasn't anything like that. It was just more about networking. How do you network, and what does it mean to have a solid network? If you've graduated from college or, you're working, that network is literally 80% of everything. Your network is 80% of your future job opportunities, your potential for, climbing the ranks at your current company, all that good stuff. I cannot emphasize enough how important it is to have a solid network. So, here's how you get started. If you don't have a network, or like you're a socially fucking awkward person, don't worry, because this is pretty much how you would go about building a network, and you can do so in a way that kind of removes the necessity of talking to people face to face really that much. So, I've got my handy dandy, piece of scratch paper here. So I'm just gonna, start drawing some shit. So let's take this X, right? This X with the circle around it. That's you, okay? This is, whatever fucking Joe Blow, whatever your name is. But, so that's you in the middle of this, right? And you have your immediate network, which are, are your friends' parents, your family, all that sorts of stuff. So let's just say that, I don't know, plus sign and circle and square and, I don't know, star and triangle, right? These are all people who are a part of your personal network, your immediate network, right? So all of those people, this star and this triangle and this square, they all have their own networks, which branch out and go kind of like a wagon wheel looking thing, right? And yeah, sorry, I can't fucking draw for shit, right? But all of these people know other people down here. They know, say, @ signs and dollar signs and, asterisks and the number 1 and the number 2. These are all just representations of people. So a 1 is a person, a 2 is a person. Everybody in this is a person, right? So each of those people in your immediate network also know these other people. And then those other people also know, these people down here and this person over here. It's like the same concept as I know a guy who knows a guy who knows a guy, all that stuff. So here's how you start building the network through that sort of matrix that you have, right? Reach out to somebody, preferably in your immediate network, but it could also be like, someone you meet or someone you build a connection with at like a career fair, something like that. And you reach out to them. And the most important thing that you can do, remember this always, don't ask for a job. Don't email somebody and be like, hey, I'm really looking for a job. Like, can you help me out? Because then that just reeks of desperation and people feel like you're only in it for the short run, right? So don't ask for a job. Ask for more information. who should I be talking to? Yeah, I'm really interested in, say, computer programming or something like that. And, how big data relates to, rating risk effectively for big financial institutions located around the world, especially those operating in high-risk jurisdictions, who's really more of an expert in this, who should I really be talking to? And hopefully your immediate network will be like, oh, I know somebody who works in that, and, I'll introduce you guys. So X is going to be introduced to the number 1, let's say, right? So you're going to get so-and-so, Uncle fucking Joe over here to introduce you to the number 1, some CEO or, maybe it's a CEO, maybe it's just somebody who fucking, works in a cubicle. But it's better than nothing, right? So here's what you do. Ask them, number 1, hey, could you introduce us? Could you introduce me, Mr. X, to your friend, Mr. Number 1 over here? And then once they say yes, then you say, okay, could you do me a favor and make the introduction via email and attach your resume to an email that you send to your uncle, right? I'm just using an uncle. It could be anybody, right? Attach your resume to an email that you send to your uncle. Tell your uncle, hey, here's my resume. Really looking forward to getting to talk to this person, whoever it is, more. And then have your uncle send that email, CC you on that email. Make sure you say, like, introduce us via email and CC me that, on that email, so that when your uncle finally does send the email, if he ever does send the email, so you know that your uncle has made the introduction, right? Well, what your uncle has become in this situation, if he is introducing you via email to this other person that he knows, your uncle has become sort of a endorsement or somebody who's willing to speak on your behalf. They may not actually be willing to speak on your behalf, but that's who they've become by virtue of their introduction of you to this other person, right? So preferably select somebody in your immediate network who, is reputable, who you wouldn't mind being associated with in a professional sense. So your uncle makes the email introduction, you get connected to, number 1 up here, and then it's just the same drill over again. Hey, I really liked our conversation about, beers or something like that. Do you know anybody that I could be talking to further? Anybody that I should be, looking to for more information? Again, not asking for a job or an internship or anything like that. And in doing this process, really, it's just like rinse, lather, repeat. Lather, rinse, repeat? I don't know what the fucking order goes. But you really just keep that process going, and then you get introduced to people who know other people, and then it has this kind of snowball, butterfly effect, and pretty soon you have a network of people that you may not have met face to face, but they know who you are, and they've seen your resume, and they'd be more willing to pass it on because you're less likely to fuck up in a email sense, than you are in person. So yeah, that's pretty much networking in a nutshell. As far as like other stuff like behavioral interviewing or, when you finally hopefully you do get an interview, you might have to do a case study. You might have to do any of these other things, but just certain things to watch out for in interviews. I know when I was interviewing for my job, they had the managing director of our office come in. And they were just like, yeah, this is Norm, but they didn't say that he was the managing director, right? Because if I know that he's the managing director, then I'm going to be more inclined to, sit up straight and, oh, yes, sir, no, sir, and, really kind of adopt a more formal tone, right? They just told us that he was like an IT guy, just some like low-level, shithead guy or whatever, like somebody that if you were working in this company, you wouldn't have to give a shit about. That's who they told you he was. And that was just more to gauge how you treated people who you, in some fashion, perceive to be below you, right? Or who you don't realize are the people who call the shots at your company, right? And people will do this all the time. Like, I read some recent story, I forget which company it is, but like the guy would, the interviewing, director, this executive would take job candidates out for lunch. And then he would show up to the restaurant where they were going out to lunch early and offer a fat tip if the kitchen fucked up the candidate's order, because he wants to see what happens when you order something and it comes out and it's not the right order. Do you freak out, and are you a little, bitch about it and just like, oh, well, this isn't what I ordered, because that shows a lot about your character to the person that you're interviewing with. So that's why it's important to just, be a cool person, be understanding, because that's the way it happens in life and business. People fuck up and things go wrong, and it's all about how you respond in those situations that shows more about your character rather than, how well you can come up with an interview answer in your head. So other things to, I guess, keep in mind, if nobody... If you guys don't know about the STAR method, it's basically a format for answering behavioral interview questions, right? So behavioral interview questions are like, tell me about a time when you disagreed with somebody at work. Tell me about a time when you were subject to a process that you didn't agree with. Or tell me about a time you failed. Certain questions that are meant to kind of delve into your past and unearth certain character traits, right? So the STAR method: situation, S, task, action, and result. So if you follow that method, okay, tell me about a time when you failed. Well, this one time I was working on a macro for this project in Excel, and I, was tasked with finding the interrelation between where our deliverable was in the database and then where it was in real time. I found out that there were a lot of data inconsistencies, and as a result, I, started a program to rectify those inconsistencies. It's just a basic way of being like, okay, here's the situation, here's how I responded to it, and here are the skills that I used in between, and you should fucking hire me. So if you guys are interested, feel free to look up more on just STAR behavioral interview guidance on YouTube, because God knows this is just like a very superficial, going into what it means to answer behavioral interview questions. If you're going to have a case study, which most of the time, like for me, I did have a case study, and case studies are mainly used in consulting and finance, and it's basically like, here's a situation, company XYZ wants to enter the light bulb market in Australia. They want to sell light bulbs at this price. They know that there's this much data on existing light bulb demographics, in Australia. How many light bulbs should they produce, or should they go, after a joint venture, something like that. So there's this guy, the guy that I studied all of my case interview stuff from is right here on YouTube. His name is Victor Cheng. I think it's Cheng. Ex-McKinsey & Company, which is, McKinsey & Company is probably like the consulting firm, like the most prestigious or whatever, right? So Victor Cheng does these great videos on really how to prep you for attacking a case study, because a case study isn't so much about the end result. It's not whether you get the right answer or not. It's whether you've asked the right questions, and if you have taken those questions to heart and then come up with a meaningful solution out of those questions. So you could come up with a completely fucking wrong answer, but if you were, asking the right questions, and if you were acting on the data that people were presenting to you, then you're good. So case studying is just a whole other level, a topic for another video. And Jesus, this video is, oh my God. This is a pretty long deal right now. So, I'll go ahead and just cut it here. Thank you guys for watching, and, cheers. I'll probably come back and, do another video here at some point, probably pretty soon. So, thanks. Enjoy your weekend. See you later, fuckers.